Hello there, people of the internet. I'm out here with a new gun that I've actually had before, and I had to get rid of it because we did run into some tough times. Thank you, Kevin! Do you guys still miss Kevin? Kevin is making a lot of noise today, so we're gonna hear Kevin on several occasions. This right here is the Rock Island Armory Model 238 Special. A lot of people have been seeing these on the internet because they become very popular just because of the price point that they're at. And they are basically being sold on every major retail website by every major retailer. If you go onto any gun site, you'll be able to find one of these. For the most part, unless they're sold out, they will get new stock in at one point or another. I'm not going to give any specific websites because YouTube doesn't like me talking about distributors where you can go out and pick yourself up a firearm. So attention YouTube reviewer, I'm not doing that. Take note on how I did not do that. But like I said before, I've actually had one of these before, but I had to get rid of it a while back just because times were quite tough. And I wanted to get myself another one, but the one that I had gotten before was used and it was not in the best of shape. The metallurgy on these is not great, and the timing does get knocked off fairly easily, and I did see that with the old one that I had. I wanted to get myself specifically a new one of these. This way I could go ahead and see just how durable it is. I mean, who knows what happened with that old one. I had bought it new, or I had bought it used. But anyone who doesn't know anything about these, they're basically a clone of a Colt revolver. You can tell that very clearly by the cylinder release right here. Why Rock Island Armory decided to go with a Colt-style cylinder release, I'll never understand. Everybody much prefers the push-button cylinder release that the Smith & Wesson models have. Or at least I know I do, and everybody else that I know definitely prefers the push-button as opposed to the Colt's pull-tab cylinder release. But it is a lot better than those revolvers that you have to, like, pull this little ejection pad out. That's what it is on this revolver here. The ejection rod, not ejection pad. What the hell am I saying here? Some revolvers you gotta like pull the ejection rod out in order to get the cylinder out so you can load it. And some of them don't even have the cylinders drop out. So it's just, this is not the worst system in the world, but it's definitely not the best. But Colt's, or Rock Island Armory, was wanting to copy a Colt pattern, and they did exactly that. And they did it very, very well. The sights on these are fixed sights, absolutely non-adjustable, so if your revolver is off one way or the other, you are going to have to Kentucky windage a thing. The sights are also not very good. It's just a molded black triangular front sights into the front of the barrel right there, and on the back we just kind of have a notch cut into the frame itself. And these are your reference points for aiming. I have seen worse sights than these right here, but I have also seen better sights. Now, whenever you are wanting to aim accurately and you put this thing into single action, this is both a single action and a double action revolver. Whenever you're wanting to aim accurately and you put this thing into single action, I have shot this already just to test functionality, but I had noticed that as I was shooting, this is what the hammer is supposed to do. It's supposed to just fall. Oh, never mind. It actually did. It actually did what had happened to me before. I'm just so used to slowly pulling that trigger back that whatever sear mechanism is in this thing, whenever I slowly pull that trigger back, sometimes that sear will catch it again and the hammer won't actually fall forward and hit the primer. It's supposed to look something like, I'll just pull the trigger quicker now. It's supposed to look something like that. But whenever you pull the trigger extremely slowly, every now and then, yeah, there we go. It will slow, like it won't let the hammer go forward, and just every now and then you're gonna have the hammer not striking your firing pin because it catches back on the trigger and the trigger actually pulls itself forward again. And it tries to reset itself, essentially. That's not something that most people are going to notice. I have an exceptionally slow trigger pull just because I really am trying to get more accurate with my handgun shots. I've been practicing a lot, and one of the things I've been practicing extensively is trigger control. And that's just one of the things that I have figured out with this revolver. You pull that trigger slow enough, and your trigger control is going to make the hammer ride forward. Now loading and unloading this thing is not very difficult. I mean, just like basically every revolver that doesn't have a fixed cylinder. revolver cylinder just kind of pops out to the side. This is not one of those guns that you have to disassemble in order to make it function. This revolver does travel in a clockwise position. I don't have a lot of 38 special ammunition. This is actually the match grade wad cutters, and it's expensive ammunition. So I'm not going to burn through too terribly much of this, but I do want to see what kind of groupings we get. I went ahead and I put myself up a cardboard box out there. I want to see what kind of groupings we get on this boxing. I want to see where this thing's hitting. I did test functionality, and it seems to function, but this is extremely high quality match grade wad cutter ammunition. Let's go ahead, put a couple of rounds downrange. I'm just going to aim for the center of the target, and let's see what happens. All right, we're sitting at about, I don't know, 7 yards or so, maybe 8 at this position. Let's see how this goes. All right. Well, I saw water spit up. Thank you, Kevin. I can't even see where I hit. All right. Windage is good, but aiming center, it looks like we hit probably about 6 inches high. For your cheaper end handguns, it is very common for them to hit either exceptionally high or low. And this looks like no exception. So 6 inches high, windage appears to be good. Let me aim down at the bottom of the target. And let's see if we can manage to hit where we want to hit. Survey says, no, that's still too high. We're definitely closer to the center of the target, but that is still a little bit too high. I'd say about 3 inches too high at that point. All right, how about that one? That's a little bit too low. That's about an inch too low. All right, so windage on this thing appears to be pretty decent, but she does hit about 6 to 8 inches high. I'm still yet to really figure out how high it's hitting, but yeah, this is not exactly a match grade revolver, and the trigger on it is not exactly a match grade trigger either. All right, now I'm going to do what I probably should have done on the last couple of rounds. I'm going to aim at one particular spot on the target, and we are going to see what kind of group we get. As a matter of fact, I am going to go grab some tape to cover up those holes, just so I'm positive on the group that we get. Okay, 3 rounds, 7 yards, single action. Let's see what kind of group we get on this thing. I'm not sure where I feel like aiming. I guess I'll aim right there, maybe? All right. Okay. All right, let's walk down there and see what the hell we have going on. Listen to those bullfrogs in the background all screaming because I'm shooting at their home. I was aiming for this barcode right here, and this right here, the windage back and forth is 100% just me. As a matter of fact, on this one right here, I could feel myself pull it a little bit left. Elevation seems excellent. I'm gonna go ahead and run a few more rounds downrange, same spot. I want to see if I can stack a few more rounds in this particular area, and we'll go ahead and just count this one as a flyer. But I have confirmed that it does in fact shoot about, 6 inches high or so. Okay, this is my last 2 rounds of 38 special. I feel like that was further back. There we go, rough approximations. That appears to be roughly where I think it was before, so. Same story as before. I'm just going to go ahead and send a couple of rounds down at our target, adjust my camera. You guys see me better like that? Okay, take my time with it, see if we have any issues with this hammer on this thing. All right. Nope, it doesn't look like we were able to count that one as a flyer because I stacked one right into it. Okay, so excluding my inabilities to fundamentally use a handgun, I'm noticing that our group at 7 yards is still not bad. The windage, 100% on me. I'm still practicing my basic trigger control. I know, but I am getting better. You ought to see my groups from like a year ago. Elevation seems to be spot on with where I was saying before. Probably about 6 inches high from your point of aim. My point of aim was this barcode, specifically the right side of this barcode. I'm not sure if it's going to be right side on the camera or not. But this area of the barcode, and a couple of times I pull a little bit to the left, and that's just one of the things that I do, and I am getting better at it, but I'm not great at it still. I would very much consider myself to be about as good as the average shooter who goes out and gives himself a little bit of practice. So this right here is a group that an average shooter would be able to do when the average shooter has a little bit of practice under their belt. With an MSRP of around $250, which is, yeah, that's about what I bought this at. Thank you, Kevin! I appreciate that. That's about what I had bought this one at new. So $250 new, probably like, I don't know, 200, 180 used on the market, depending on where it is that you get it from. This right here is not a bad little budget revolver. Definitely accurate, other than the fact that it shoots a little bit high. You can go ahead and Kentucky windage and compensate for that. The reason I was aiming so low was because I knew that we'd be hitting more towards the middle of our target. So 7 yards, you're going to hit about 6 inches high. That's not going to be much of a problem. It's not like you're going to be using this for competitions. It would definitely serve as a really good defensive gun for those that are on a budget. Now, I have plenty of firearms that I could use as a defensive rifle, and I'm not exactly on a budget either. So why did I get this thing? Well, I basically got it because I used to have one and I missed having one. And I don't like selling my arsenal, but I will, you know, in the event that I have to. But I did not have a Colt pattern revolver. I have plenty of Smith & Wessons. I have old Colt single action Armies, like the old school black powder ones. But I did not have one that was in the configuration that this Rock Island Armory one is. Now, Rock Island Armory also makes essentially the same revolver, but in a snub nose capacity. This way you could more so use it as a concealed carry weapon, if that is the route that you decide to take with this handgun. I will say that I do feel like the, well, I wanted to go with the 4-inch barrel just because I like the aesthetics of it. I have plenty of concealed carry handguns, and I did not plan on concealed carrying this firearm at all. Just my personal preference, you know, your mileage may vary, whatever it is that you feel like doing. But they do make essentially the same handgun, but a 2-inch barrel snub nose version. They have both hammer versions of that snub nose revolver and hammerless versions. I've never been a fan of hammerless version revolvers just because I like being able to cock my hammer and use it in single action, but I understand the prospects of using something like that for concealed carry. This way you don't risk your hammer catching on to something. The grips on this thing, I'm not a particularly big fan of the grips on this thing, and I will say on the snub nose, they do come with wood grips. The snub nose and these grips are not interchangeable. However, you can go ahead and swap these out with any kind of aftermarket grips on the market. They make plenty of aftermarket grips for this particular revolver right here, just because they are so popular, and that's mainly due to the price point. These grips are like a hard plastic. I mean, they will work. If you're on a budget and need something like right now, then you can't go wrong with one of these. Now, I'm not sure if I would take a revolver like this in .38 Special over, say, a 9mm high point. And I mean, at $250, you have several semi-automatic options on the market that you can go ahead and go to. Semi-automatics tend to be, well, they're a little bit less reliable, but they're a lot easier to get unjammed whenever they do jam. Revolvers will jam, but semi-automatics jam a lot easier. It's also much easier to reload a semi-automatic, and 9mm is oftentimes much cheaper than .38 Special, so you'd be able to practice a lot more frequently with 9mm than you would be able to practice with a .38 Special. If you are somebody who's on a budget, then odds are you don't have a lot of money to play with. I know a lot of your... Thank you, Kevin! Man, Kevin is just screaming all day today. I know a lot of your Tauruses, those come in around the $250 mark, like your G2 series and things like that. There's some of those Sky handguns. You can get yourself several handguns on the used market, depending on where it is that you're looking for. You can get a lot for $250. But if you are bound and determined to get yourself a revolver, this right here is not a bad option. You can get any of the High Point series for like $180. So you could get a High Point and then like, what, 300 or 400 rounds with the extra amount of ammunition or extra amount of money that you have left over for ammunition if your budget is $250. If your budget is $250, I would not go with this. I would definitely recommend getting something cheaper, like the High Point, chambered in 9mm or something, so you could get ammunition to go along with it. Just my 2 cents. Not a lot of people are going to agree on that. A lot of people love to crap on High Point because they're a cheap gun, but they're also a gun that works. This right here is a cheap gun, but it also very much appears to be a gun that works. Like I had said before, the timing on these is thrown off fairly easily just because these are manufactured in the Philippines. Their metallurgy is not the best. I don't know anything about it, but I can vouch for saying that I have had one that has had the timing thrown off. I don't know what it's been through. I don't know what threw the timing off. But if I did not purposefully line the cylinder up with the barrel, then I would have had a bad day, and that's not something that you want whenever you are getting yourself a revolver. That's why I chose to get myself a new one, so I could be sure that the timing on this one is in fact not off. And if for some reason timing is knocked off on this thing, I also have a warranty with it, perks of buying a new firearm. I definitely prefer the longer barrel versions of these things as opposed to the snub nose barrels, just because I like them aesthetically better. And I don't plan on using them for any sort of concealed carry situation, but I digress. Let me know what you guys' thoughts are down below. I'm sure that somebody's going to have something to add to this. What is y'all's opinion if y'all have played with one of these before? I like it. This one seems particularly accurate, definitely way more accurate than the older one that I had many years ago. The older one had like 6-inch groups at the 7 yards, whereas this one, oh, I'd say that's roughly 2.5 inches, staring at it right now. Rough guesstimation. Well, let's give it the benefit of the doubt and call it a 3-inch group at 7 yards. That's still not bad for a defensive pistol, especially at the price point that you're paying for this thing. So let me know what y'all's thoughts are down below. I'm sure somebody's going to have something to say about this thing. If you have any experience, like I said, let me know down below. Always glad to hear from people. Besides that, thank you, Kevin. Kevin's going to help me do the outro of this. Subscribe to the channel. You can't really see it. I'm actually at the old range right now because my new range is dealing with some issues in that direction. People are clearing out the area over there, and I don't want to be shooting in that direction while people are clearing it out, so I'm just shooting directly into my pond right now. It'll make for some good content, and I am being able to utilize the retro range, the old range. Back whenever I first started this YouTube channel, this is the range that I used. All right, Kevin's done screaming now. Thanks for watching, folks. You guys go off, have yourself a fantastic day. I am tired and dehydrated. I'm gonna go drink like half a gallon of water and then come out and film something else. I don't know what I'm gonna film though. I'll figure it out. You guys go off, have a fantastic day like I said. All right, real quick, before I forget about doing it, let me go ahead and talk about some of the specs of this revolver. This is a 6-shot 38 special revolver. It is not chambered in plus P, but a lot of people will fire plus P ammunition from this thing. It says it runs it just fine. All steel frame, plastic grips, single double action. It's got a Colt style cylinder release and a 4-inch barrel. It appears to be some sort of parkerized finish. I have no idea whether or not the barrel is chrome lined. At the price point of $250, I'm going to assume the barrel is not, in fact, chrome lined. If it is, I would be very, very impressed. Trigger pull on this thing appears to be, oh, I'd say roughly 3.5 pounds, maybe 4 pounds, but you got to pull it quickly, otherwise the hammer will not properly fall every time that you pull that trigger. There is no manual safety on this thing, but there is, however, a safety built into the hammer system itself. It is called a transfer bar. What the transfer bar does is you have to actually be pulling the trigger in order for the... I'll go ahead and show you guys here. You have to actually be pulling the trigger in order for the hammer to be able to strike the firing pin. And that is done because of this little bar right here. This bar is the actual transfer bar. If you are not pulling the trigger, you can actually see how the transfer bar will drop down out of the way of the firing pin right there. And because that transfer bar is not in the way of the firing pin, the hammer does not have the mass necessary to be able to go forward and hit the back of the firing pin, thus driving it into the primer of the cartridge. If you notice, if I'm holding the trigger down like I am, whenever that hammer goes forward, it will hit the transfer bar, and that transfer bar is actually what smacks into the back of the firing pin, which smacks into the primer as a result. If the hammer is not being pulled, then whenever I let go of the hammer, it goes forward and the transfer bar drops down, thus missing the firing pin. This isn't exactly a beautiful revolver. This isn't exactly a renowned revolver, but for the price point that you're paying, it is definitely a good quality revolver. I'm not sure what kind of steel is used, but it is an all steel frame. I know a lot of your cheaper end revolvers will use some sort of metal alloy. This is in fact steel. Been a little while since I've done this. Bonnie and Clyde be damned. The poor man's Garrett. It's a shame that bolt-action shotguns aren't more mainstream.